Welcome, PI Nation. You're listening to the Politically Incorrect Podcast. Here are your hosts, Matt, Evaldo, and Deshawn.
Welcome, PI Nation, to another episode of the Politically Incorrect Podcast. This is your host, Matthew, and I'm joined by my fellow host, Deshawn Barros. I'll just say something great.
Hey, everybody. Excited to be back.
And also, Evaldo Barros.
What's up, people?
And we have an exciting show for you today, this glorious Monday. It's called Entertainment Monday. But before we do that, I just wanted to talk about our 4th of July weekend. How was your guys' 4th of July? Celebrating the greatest nation to ever exist.
Well, I'm excited to be back, and I hope everybody had a wonderful 4th of July. I really just hung out with family, barbecued some steak.
That's what it's
just
all
hang
about.
Out, man. How about you, Evaldo?
I hung out with some friends like we normally do every year. I wore my Trump t-shirt. I didn't get any backlash for it, but I did get some questions. Someone said, good, cool t-shirt.
Yeah, awesome to hear. For me, myself, I just stayed at home with family, but we did have some all-American burgers. Got to celebrate with the burgers.
Yeah.
Love burgers.
Cheeseburgers, right?
And just celebrating, cheeseburgers, and just celebrating the greatest nation. So glad to be born here and have the opportunity to be able to do things like this freely within this nation. I know there was a lot of backlash for Trump's parade, but
I heard about that.
I heard that it went very successfully. From what I was able to watch online, it went very well. Didn't cost a lot of money, and it was just all about celebrating America. And I think it's too bad that you got some people who are just so miserable that they can't just celebrate the birth of America.
And you know what's so funny about the parade? There was no media coverage for that either.
There was actually news channels that said that they purposely weren't going to show the parade.
That's sad. That's
all because
sad.
they just hate Trump. The parade wasn't for Trump. It was for the birth.
It was for the birth of America.
Celebrating this nation.
We can insinuate that that's very anti-America at that point.
I heard not even Fox News showed it, right?
They weren't on the list that I saw, so I don't know.
I thought I heard somewhere.
Yeah, I'd have to double check that. We can double check it. But I know for sure MSNBC, ABC, CBS, those typical ones. Although I didn't even see CNN on the list, but could be wrong too. But anyways, it was a great success. It was a huge turnout for it. President got praise for his speech. It wasn't about him. It was about America and our accomplishments, and that's what it's all about. But let's move forward. We got some great topics for you today. Again, Entertainment Monday. We're going to be talking about video games. But not only that, we're going to be talking about movies, TV shows, sports, anything that politics is really getting its hands on or encroaching its into. A lot of these things are things that we use as a form of escapism. So we're going to be talking about politics and entertainment. And just in just a few seconds, we'll be right back.
Politically Incorrect. Hey guys, hope you're enjoying the show. Matt, Evaldo, and Deshawn would really like to thank you guys for your support and for tuning in today. Also, in order to keep the show growing, go ahead and hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel and like and share this video as well. And hit the bell notification to receive all of our updates. Thanks guys, and remember, in PI Nation, there's no political correctness. Ladies and gentlemen, fasten your seatbelts. You are about to re-enter the PI Nation.
Welcome back, PI Nation. So I got some fun facts for you. Did you know that Shigeru Miyamoto, now if you don't know who he is, he's the pretty much the brainchild behind a lot of some of your favorite video game characters for Nintendo. Known for Super Mario Brothers. I'm sure you guys know him. Zelda, Donkey Kong, and a bunch of others. Did you know that he is so important to Nintendo that he is not allowed to bike to work? Yes. Because they're afraid that he's going to get injured or get hit by a car. He is that important that company policy is that he is not allowed to bike to work. He's always got to drive in or have somebody drive him in. He's that important. To be honest, he is the face of Nintendo. So just a cool little fact there. I'll throw in a bonus one. So for some of you older gamers out there that maybe have played Pac-Man. Pac-Man was actually inspired by a missing slice of pizza in an actual round pizza. That's how Pac-Man was created. The creator was looking at the pizza, took a slice, and said, "Hey, that kind of looks like a mouth opening up, and how can I turn that into a video game?" And there you go. That's how Pac-Man, one of the most recognizable video games out there, was created by a slice of pizza. Yeah. So let's get into our main topics for Entertainment Monday. We're going to start off with video games. And again, for me, video games is my form of escapism. When I look at video games, it's a way for me to escape the stresses of life. It's a way to just have a little bit of fun, to not worry about politics. You know, politics is the last thing that I want in my video games, because let's be honest, politics is one of those topics that makes us a little bit stressed out, if we're honest. Sometimes angry. It's not always good for your health to always be talking about politics. So it saddens me to see politics encroaching in things like video games. You know, when I was a little boy playing some of the games that I just mentioned, like Super Mario Brothers, I wasn't thinking about politics. I was thinking about jumping over enemies and getting to the flag. There was no politics that I was thinking. You know, when I was playing Sonic the Hedgehog, there was no thoughts of politics or agendas being thrown down my throat. I wasn't sitting there thinking, "Hey, does Sonic like men? Does he like females?" But that's what has become in our video games. But I got a couple of questions for my hosts here. Since we're talking about video games, you know, what were some of the games that you used to play as a kid, or even now, maybe?
Wow. Some things I used to play. I used to play NBA 2K a lot.
Okay, yeah,
So
that's a
I
good
mean,
game.
but you never really find politics in that game. At least I can't. I never really saw that in those games. Certain games like depending on what you play, as far as storylines and things of that nature. So you have to give me a minute on that one because I got to sit on that.
All right,
for a little
we'll go to Valdo. Valdo, what games?
Man,
do you
I used to
remember
play
playing as a
like
kid?
Contra,
Oh, Contra is actually my
Karate
favorite.
Kid.
Those are NES games.
Even like the first Nintendo, you had, you know, you mentioned Zelda, Super Mario Brothers, the gun, the one with the duck when you
Oh,
get
yeah,
the
Duck
gun.
Hunt. Yep.
Yeah, I mean Mike Tyson Punch Out was awesome when I was growing up. I used to love playing that game. There's so many I can go down the list on, but yeah, you're bringing me back now.
Yeah, those are some good
bit.
games.
Man, I can see his face lighting up over
Yeah,
there.
Thinking of my
well,
childhood.
If you can
Contra.
see him, his face is lighting up over there, man.
Contra was awesome.
Contra was my favorite. I used to play that with my cousin all the time. That was our go-to game.
Contra. Can you explain what that is? Because I'm a young
Contra
man.
is
I'm
a-
21,
is a-
guys.
Is a
These guys are a little bit older than I am.
side-scrolling shooter game. So, and it's very hard. Like if you don't know the Konami code, it was extremely hard to beat it.
Mhm.
So very, very good fond memories. Actually, one of my favorite games of all time is the original two Contras.
I know, and everything was so like 2-dimensional back then. You can only go side to side. There was
Right,
no.
but you know what? It was a
360.
lot of fun. It didn't have like the big storylines that you get today, but it was just pure fun. You know, again, no politics, no stupid agendas being. It was just, I guess it was that 80s, right? Because Contra came out in the 80s, so it was during that time where movies were very masculine. You know, you had your
Yeah.
Arnold Schwarzeneggers and you had
Yep.
your Stallones, and you know, it was okay to be a man back then. And that's actually what Contra was based off. The two main characters, I forget the name. One is Bill and some's the other. But if you look at the way that their models were designed, one is clearly based off of Arnold Schwarzenegger, and the other one is based off of Stallone. So it was just an awesome game. I'm glad you mentioned that game.
It was so
Yeah.
awesome. I
So
loved
cool.
it.
So Deshaun, have you thought of anything? A childhood game. Now you're of a newer generation.
Yeah.
So you probably grew up
With like
maybe
Crash
in the
Bandicoot,
PlayStation era.
Ratchet
Yeah.
and Clank,
So let's hear about some of the games that you.
Ratchet and Clank, Mace. I'm not sure if anybody remembers that game for Nintendo 64.
No, I don't.
Mace. There was a few other games that I used to love to play when I was a kid. Spyro.
Yeah,
Spyro
Spyro
the
the Dragon.
Dragon?
They actually just came
I
out with a
don't know that one.
remake.
They just remade that for the PS4. That was pretty awesome. But there was really no politics in those games. At least when I was young, didn't even think about politics. Didn't even think of any of those things. So, and those video games. But in the video games we see today, they're littered with politics.
Right.
And just to name a few, you have like I'm not sure if you guys played the game Detroit Becoming Human.
I haven't played it, but I know of it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of politics in that from a more futuristic standpoint.
Right.
But not only that game, but certain others like just to name a few. You have NBA now. NBA now is becoming really, really more like NBA 2K18, 2K19,
Mhm.
even some of them, even some of the just the background tones, the other tones of the story, the stories behind the players and things like that are just becoming so much more liberalized and very more left leaning.
Right. So that was actually my second question: is do you guys remember any politics? We already touched upon it. The games that me and Evaldo mentioned, again, there was no politics. Now, again, games were a little bit different back then because there wasn't really a big storyline. With Super Mario Brothers, it was go rescue a princess. A damsel in distress. But that's actually pretty important because that's a huge issue that we're going to actually talk about. But Evaldo, you recall any games?
No, I guess times were simpler back then. Like you
Yeah.
said, the idea was more of a masculine point of view. So there wasn't any agendas. Maybe we just weren't ready for it back then.
Yeah,
They
maybe.
want to unleash it now.
And you know what? Personally, I'm okay because games have evolved. Actually, one of the fun facts is that gaming itself is actually the number one form of entertainment when it comes to how many people are actually playing video games and also the profitability of it.
Oh yeah,
It's actually gained the number one spot. So it's a growing industry and it's going to continue to grow. You got your casual gamers and then you have your hardcore gamers. But I'm actually okay with some of the games that obviously have a big story to it. If you want to drive some story elements that involves fictional politics and things like that, that's fine. To me, it becomes a huge issue is when they're purposely putting in agendas or politics into some of these video games in which there's no business for it. And it's not to make you make a choice or to think differently. It's solely to influence you to say, okay, this is how you should be thinking. And I'll give you some examples of that as well. But that's kind of the gist. Now, for gaming, because it's become so popular, it's it's falling into the same traps as some of your other forms of entertainment. So things like sports, where you have companies like ESPN that have politicized themselves, and we're going to talk about them more later too. Um, it has actually caused a lot of problems for them. Now, the major game publications, they're doing the same thing. The problem is a lot of those gaming journalists, they're not actually journalists anymore. They're activists. So if they've taken a page out of CNN and instead of reporting on video games, they're actually disguising it as they're activists. So they're pushing all these agendas. So it's not necessarily game companies, but it's a lot of these journalists that are pushing a lot of these agendas to be in these games when nobody is asking for these things. And you're seeing that across the spectrum of all forms of entertainment, just your daily news and things like that. So that's the major problem. And I'll give you some examples. So, for instance, there was a game that just came out a few months ago. It's called Battlefield 5. Now, Battlefield 5 to me is important because I enjoy the Battlefield series. I like war games and I like war games based on actual history. But what they were doing was they were pushing a feminist movement into a war in which they shouldn't have. Now, I'm okay. You want to make a multiplayer section where you can create your own character and it can be female, that's fine. But what they wanted to do was they wanted to erase the fact that it was basically men who were serving it during that time and the importance of men and the role that they played during that time. And they wanted to just infuse females and make the females the kind of the lead characters. And to me, that's a problem because you're erasing history or at least trying to replace history. And that just seems to be the liberal agenda, not only in video games, but all around us. Right.
Yeah. Just to piggyback off you said, I was watching an interview with a independent artist. I don't know if any of the young people might know. His name is Russ. He had an interview with Joe Budden, and they were discussing about how he's since the platforms like SoundCloud and TuneCore and things like that for artists, up and coming artists, to actually distribute their music online. He was saying that actually, when you start to get into the more corporate side of the business, as far as music's involved, you have huge corporations as far as like Columbia Records, um, and things like that, Capitol Records, all these different record labels who actually pushed the forefront of popular culture as far as rap, and they pushed this agenda like promiscuity, like you were saying before, profanity and things like that. Yep. So he was talking about rappers like Little Pump and all these new up and coming rappers who are pushed to the forefront, who are like industry plants, where board executives actually go in to say what they want to represent urban culture, which really what it means is just black culture, really. So they use that as an excuse to promote more of promiscuity and just profanity in that case.
Right.
So you can just tell that liberalism starts at the very top.
Right. And this company, Electronic Arts, they actually hired a feminist to work on this video game and a couple of other ones that they were doing as well. Her name is Anita Sarkeesian. She is a well-known feminist who's trying to push for females to kind of be the front line of video games and other sorts of entertainment as well. And when people begin to cry out and say, hey, this isn't what we want from a World War II video game, we want some accuracy here. We realize this is a video game. It's not going to be solely realistic, and we understand that you can have some liberties with it. But don't erase the history of all the men that died on Omaha Beach and D-Day and replace it with females because you want females to be empowered. And the way that this company responded is they basically they actually said that those people who were saying those things were uneducated. They actually said it. They said that they're uneducated, and if you don't like it, then don't buy it. And let me tell you, a lot of people did not buy this video game. It flopped extremely hard because of that. Yeah, it's just a video game. It's a form of escapism. But if you're going to base it on something as important as World War II, be accurate and true to the history of it.
Yeah.
You want to make a futuristic game where it's filled with women, be my guest. And then those people will buy what they want to buy. And that's fine. But don't erase history to make females better. You know what? You can honor females better by actually talking or creating a game, or at least talking about the females that actually did serve during World War II, the spies, the nurses, and the women that worked in the factories so that we could get what we needed to fight the war. You know, they played an important role, but they weren't dying in the battlefields. Is that with Tom Hanks? Yeah, I forget it. Right. So do stuff like that if you want to give some empowerment to women during that time. You know, show what they were doing to contribute to the war. Don't just erase history. But I had mentioned earlier too about damsels in distress, and that has become a big taboo in video gaming. League of Their Own. Because nowadays, if you try to create a video game with a damsel in distress, feminists go wild. Like that woman that I told you, Anita Sarkeesian, they actually get offended and think that that's, again, men being ogres and Neanderthals, and it's too masculine. So game companies have backtracked from what it used to be, and now you're seeing a lot more female leads, and that's fine. But I'll give you an example. There's a game called Gears of War that I play. I enjoy it. It's a good game.
Yeah, it is a really good game. Gears of War, yeah.
But if you were a true fan of Gears of War and you played from the beginning, those were masculine men who were fighting a war. It was a fictional war. But what they decided to do with all this pressure is they took the main characters, which were all men, and they began to slowly phase them out, and now you're having a main character as the female character. Again, if you do the story right, it can work. But I feel like a lot of times with these game companies they're doing, you're seeing a lot more of them.
Yeah.
Is them they're purposely making their main characters female to bow down to the pressures of what these feminist groups want. So you no longer can have a damsel in distress.
Yeah.
And I'm actually gonna give some praise to Nintendo right now because they actually came out and said they don't care about politics in their video games, and they're gonna create the games that they want. And Mario is gonna rescue a princess no matter what the feminist groups say. They're creating video games because they love video games and they want to create fun video games for everybody. They don't care about politics. So I give them props for that. That's what I'm telling you is a lot of these journalists, they're not really journalists. What ended up happening is you have a lot more casual gamers, and that's a problem too because not really a problem, but yeah, it's going to change the landscape. These journalists, they're not hardcore gamers. They're casual gamers with that are more interested in activism. So when you go on these big websites like IGN, GameSpot, Kotaku, which is filled when it comes to politics, a lot of times their articles aren't really game related. They're pushing an agenda. For instance, we're gonna move on to the next. So there's also you got the feminist movement, and you also have this gay agenda movement as well when it comes into video games. Okay. Again, you want to build a story and have your main character be a gay character. That's fine. Do what you want, and people, if they enjoy the story, they're gonna buy your video game. But what game companies are doing and what activists are, these journalists are doing, is they're purposely trying to sneak in their agendas. I'll go back to Gears of War. Just recently, there was E3. One of the game's journalists actually asked one of the developers who the main character prefers, I guess what you would say sexually. Like, why would you ask that?
Ooh.
It never came up before, but now you have games journalists who are purposely asking, is the main character gay? Is it straight? Like, real gamers don't care about that stuff. They don't. I never once put in a video game and said, is Solid Snake gay? Is Solid Snake not gay? Like, that stuff doesn't come to my mind, but this is what these journalists are doing. They're purposely wanting to push those types of agendas.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's because they want to appeal to a wide audience of people. Because, like you said before, there's casual gamers out there. We have people out there who are playing games casually, and since they want to appeal to a mass audience, really, and which comes down to just, of course, profit and things of that nature. When we talk about video games and selling them, is to try to appeal to that mass group of people in order to bring in more profit for the gaming companies. Which I think, honestly, like you said about Nintendo, how they said, regardless, we're going to continue to make video games the way we want to, if people buy them or not, which is a great stand. But unfortunately, more corporations and gaming institutions will just try to appeal to a more wide audience in order to.
I mean, I just gave one example, but this is what they're constantly doing. These are the articles that they're writing, is about whether a character is gay or not.
This is crazy, man.
The other thing is you have games with no story in which the same agenda is being pushed. So, for instance, there's a popular game out there called Overwatch, where there's a bunch of different characters. They have a little bit of backstories, but the main purpose of the game, it's just a team deathmatch type game. So there's no main story. There's no real premise to it other than just, getting the most kills. But they're purposely creating backstories for these characters in which they're gay or homosexual or transgender. Like, why? Why do you need that stuff in the video games? I don't need to know if my character is straight. Yeah, they're
I've heard of Overwatch,
purposely
but I've never played it.
pushing these things.
I thought it was. I didn't really like that game, honestly. I mean, I played it for a little bit. I didn't really like it.
Some other things, they're not only are they pushing politics, agendas, but they're also pushing politics. So, for instance, there's a company out there called Ubisoft. Okay, they make a lot of open world, very story driven, very decision type making games. and they've been under fire quite a bit. Not so much by the gamers, but again, these journalists, because they hate Trump so much that they actually try to force these companies to add politics that are anti-Trump. So, for instance, there's a game that came out called The Division 2. If you follow The Division, it basically follows the fall of the United States of America, the collapse of civilization.
What game is this?
It's called The Division 2. And in this game, you actually get to go to the White House. And of course, as soon as the gaming journalists saw this, they jumped on it and was like, "Oh wow, this must be a political statement saying how America is going to be ruined by Donald Trump. This is the future that would be portrayed by because Donald Trump was elected president of the United States. They're always trying to push some kind of hateful narrative against the president." Another game was called Rage 2. Featured a protagonist that was like a dictator, and again, you had these journalists that were pushing, saying that, "Oh, that's Donald Trump," and the company kept saying, "No, these stories were written well before even President Trump was president. We're not pushing any political narrative here. We're just trying to build a story." But the games journalists would not let it go. Another example, I'll give you a game called Far Cry 5. This was actually a game that I haven't personally played it, but I just read up because of what the journalists are saying about it. But the journalists were all upset because it features a white religious cult. So they were stating that this game is promoting white nationalism, and it was promoting Christianity because of supposedly this group this cult is in here is a Christian group. So they were pushing and saying that Far Cry was supporting white nationalists and things like that. These are the types of politics that these game journalists are pushing in our video games.
Wow.
It's no longer just about Sonic and Mario and just escaping video games.
Yes, and it's so funny. I just really just searched up Ubisoft online, and I came into a Variety magazine. So it says that Ubisoft, our games may avoid political message, but they aren't apolitical, meaning that they are going to push or imply real world political situations and scenarios in the game.
Right.
And I guess the president or the vice president of editorial at Ubisoft, which is Tommy Francois, he actually posted on a blog the other day, and he actually he said this to clarify, and as I quote, he said, writing that we want our gamers to experience or be inspired by real world people, places, politics, and issues affecting the society we live in today. The aim is to ultimately present a 360-degree view of life. He goes on to say, our goal is to give players all the information we can and then let them choose which sides of our game worlds they want to explore.
Correct. And that actually came under fire because a lot of Ubisoft games, you can choose which way you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
But journalists weren't happy with that. They wanted you to be forced into, making certain choices. But that's where Ubisoft came out and said, we're going to allow our players to make the choice for themselves. There's no room for politics in video games, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. I don't think that we should put politics in video games. I think we should leave video games out of it, just like I feel like we should leave sports out of politics as well. I think sports should just be sport and just leave politics and leave political things out of it. But of course, like anything else, to appeal to a wider audience of people and a wider range of people, companies and corporations will really bend.
Yeah. I have one more thing that I'll say. There was actually a game that came out not too long ago where one of these journalists, they review games, and one of the cons was that the main character was white, was a white male. I mean, just think about that. That's what we've come down to, that a game will get a negative rating because the main character happens to be a white male.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, it's amazing how they use anything. It's like they care about people's skin color. It's like Little Mermaid. Everybody's going crazy about Little Mermaid being an ethical character now. It's crazy.
But let us. We're going to jump into our second topic. We'll be right back.
Politically incorrect.
Hey guys, hope you like the show today. The guys here just want to say what's up and keep you guys posted with all the latest. So do us a favor and like us on Politically Incorrect at Facebook. Follow us on Instagram on the Politically Incorrect Pod and on Twitter at PipNation508. And don't forget, this is the only show where the blacks don't vote blue. Ladies and gentlemen, fasten your seatbelts and prepare to be offended. We are re-entering the Politically Incorrect podcast.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
What's up, everybody?
Got another fun fact for you.
Woo.
Did you know that the top 2 selling games of all time is one, Minecraft. Oh, what a surprise.
I didn't know that.
With 176 million units sold.
Jeez.
Wow, that's
Quite
a lot.
And it's still going strong. And what do you guys think is the next one?
Oh,
I'm going to
man.
tell you it's an old school game.
I have no idea, Matt.
Old
Me
school.
either, man.
Very
What is it?
simple. And the second highest selling game of all time is Tetris.
Wow.
With 170 million units.
Wow.
Remember, you could play that in the Nintendo Game Boy.
Yep.
That was pretty cool. I
That was.
missed that. You don't. That's too old for you. The Game Boy.
No, I remember the Game Boy.
You do remember the Game Boy?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, the Game Boy's been around for a long time. They had the Game Boy, then the Game Boy Color, and then the
I remember the
Advance.
Game Boys. I played Nintendo 64. Just for you guys who don't know my age, I'm 21 years old. These guys just a little bit older than I am. 21, and I think I grew up with like the PlayStation, just the
Probably
PlayStation,
the
the
PlayStation.
Nintendo 64, then the PlayStation 2, and the Xbox,
And then
the Game Boys, the PSPs.
the next generations with PSPs. Those are pretty cool, right?
Yep. And then they had the
Wow.
touchscreen PSPs, which I didn't actually get to
crazy.
have one, but
So we're going to continue our discussion on entertainment and politics in our entertainment. And I'm going to really kick it off to Deshaun and Evaldo for this segment because we're going to focus more on sports and movies and things like that. So who wants to go first?
yeah. So I'll go first. So we did a poll the other day. I want to talk about our Facebook results on the poll that we did. So I
Yeah.
had 25 votes on my last Facebook poll. This is on my personal page, and there were 19 of them who said no. So let me just pull it up really quick. And we asked the question. I believe we asked
25. Huh? That's pretty good.
the question. Jeez, I can't even seem to pull it up here. Excuse me for 1 second. We asked the question about how do you feel about video games becoming more politicized by the liberal agenda? And yes was I am okay with it, and no was I am not okay with it. So 19 of the votes were I am not okay with it, and 6 of the votes was I am okay with it. Then we went on to the Politically Incorrect podcasts, which is ours, and we had about 13 votes, and I believe 2 of those votes were yes, and then 11 of those votes were no. And as we spoke about today, you can tell that there are people out there that are not for.
Right. Like I said earlier, the majority of people or gamers or people who are looking for entertainment, they don't want to hear about politics
No,
anymore. They hear it
no.
all day
So
long.
the people that don't mind, they don't care because they agree with it. That's their
That's-
lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably
That's
what
So
the
they
way.
don't care if it's in everything.
But
But
when
you
I
know what? If we started putting Jesus and everything, I bet you they all of a sudden they
Right.
change their tune.
oh, of course they would. Oh man, it's never
Probably
ever.
would.
So, an interesting topic, and I think I should let Evaldo speak on this one. Is Disney just came out with a new lead character for The Little Mermaid, and I want Evaldo to tell us a little bit more about
I
that.
don't know too much about it other than that there's like a hashtag of white people that are saying "not my mermaid," hashtag "not my mermaid" on Twitter, because they feel like what you always say, Matt. They're changing the history of a character to make it fit something else. And then
Right.
you
Yeah.
had black people that were backlashing, saying, "Oh, they're hating on us now because they're making Little Mermaid black." So
And
it's just ridiculous.
what's funny is I said Evaldo to do it because Evaldo, he really loves the topic of race. Whenever every time we start talking about race, you could just tell he's just fired up about it. But just like he said before, they're trying to fit a narrative, and the narrative is that we need an ethnic mermaid. And even if you look at the new movie, Spider-Man: Far From Home, I'm not sure if any of you guys who are listening are Marvel fans, but even I'm not really a fan of the MJ that they have playing the Mary Jane. It's a more of an ethnic, boyish type girl. She's not like a damsel
I'll be
in
honest, I
distress.
haven't seen Spider-Man since the Tobey Maguire
Yeah,
versions
yeah.
because I've just heard that they're not really worth watching. So
Honestly, I
know.
mean, the movie, it's amazing because the MJ that we know is like a damsel in distress.
right, yeah, but that's not politically correct, you know.
So in the Marvel films, this girl is no longer a damsel in distress. She's not helpless anymore. She can carry her own tune. She can do whatever she wants, and she's more ethnical. She's not a white girl like usually MJ was. She's a white girl.
Feminist movement.
So
That's what it is.
just like you said before, it's just amazing how just the liberal agenda just continues to permeate all aspects of entertainment, which is sad because we use this form as a way to get away from things, and yet the industry keeps trying to push more and more and more political persuasions on us. But
So, what is your real opinion about the mermaid changing from white to black? Is that really a big issue?
it's not an issue to begin with. I don't even think that
Not for me.
I don't think that the issue.
I mean, yeah, it is an issue. Yeah, I mean, it is an issue for me. It's stupid.
I think it's just dumb. Honestly, I think it's stupid. I think it's dumb.
Do you think that their
I think-
intention is to push some form of agenda by doing
Yes,
that or statement?
absolutely.
Oh, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Like
Absolutely.
it's like imagine if we said that character's always been a white character.
Right.
It's always been a white. The way I look at it is if Black America is so upset with Disney stories coming out with white characters as their main characters, why don't you come up with your own stories?
So
Why don't you come up with your own
so if
stuff
they come out with a new
and put your own character in there?
Black Panther movie, is it okay to make him white?
Of course not. That wouldn't be essential to the actual
Would
character
you call
itself.
it White Panther?
Yeah,
That would be deemed racist because it's called White Panther.
that's true. Right?
Yeah, yeah. It's like I seen a meme online. It was about the making of a Martin Luther King movie. Let me see if I can pull it up. I think I shared it on my timeline. But it was like making a documentary about Martin Luther King and making the main character white. How would you guys really feel about that? You would just really feel off.
That's really stupid. Well, you're changing actual history.
Yeah.
You know, I guess it's one thing to change a fictional character, but now you're messing with history, which again I already stated I have a problem with. Martin Luther King is black. That's just the way it is. That's facts.
Yeah.
Can't change it.
Yeah.
For me, I think the mermaid story, if I liked that story, if that was something I was into, maybe I would have more of an issue for it. I'd probably have more of an issue if they changed it into a male, which will probably be the next step.
Yeah.
I
So-
think it's dumb because white people are better swimmers than black people, anyways. So it doesn't even fit what black people really.
Yeah,
want.
I think the issue with it more is because it's more agenda driven than being genuine.
It is. It is.
It really is more gender driven. If you look at it, I mean, why does the Little Mermaid matter even in the aspect of race and things of that nature in the country? Why does
I
that
guess the
even
next
matter?
thing would be is
It's because you have no substance to go off of. Is that you
not
need
even
every
that.
little thing to promote your agenda.
Because what they try to do is they try to cause a race war first,
Yeah.
and then they use the race war, and then they use it to change other things. The next thing they'll say, well, we want him to be gay or her to be gay, and then it goes down their
Yeah,
whole list of
Deshaun just sent
agendas.
an article the other day stating that the character for Spider-Man says he doesn't mind if Spider-Man's gay. Like,
Yeah.
why does that even need to be brought up?
It's all
Again.
linked together.
It's those journalists asking those questions because they're pushing the same ones that are doing
Yeah.
it for video games, are doing it for movies and other entertainment.
Even music, we
They're
have this
asking
new
stupid questions.
artist. I mean, everybody's been singing along with his songs. Little Nas X, Old Town Road. He just came out as gay, and he says he's been holding that in, or he's been exposing that on his new album. So it's just the gay agenda and all these things.
Yeah,
are
they're
just
all
kinda
linked.
perme-
Because if you look at the LGBT, they try to link their movement to the civil rights movement. So
Yep.
it always starts off with race, and then they go on to the
Yep.
next phase of
and
things.
look at this. He's a black rapper who actually doing country/hip hop music, which is now a big thing. But for me, the guy is 20 years old. He probably has no idea who he is. I mean, he's just thrown into stardom. It's a sad case of identity politics and even more LGBTQ propaganda to me.
So what about the sports world? Have they been able to avoid politics at all?
Oh no, not the NBA either.
No. But this has actually been going on for a long time. It's just now it's I guess they feel like the powers that be like we're ready for it because I looked back at I remember Greg Hodges. I don't know if you guys remember him. He played for the Chicago Bulls. He was a shooting guard. He used to be really good at shooting the threes. He was around the Bulls era, their first three-peat. So he was he was really active politically, and he followed a lot of the thinking of the Islamic people. And one time when they went to the White House, he had a whole letter written out for George Bush about what the black community needed, all this activist stuff. And he got blacklisted a couple years later because the commissioner at that time, David Stern, wasn't down for all this political stuff. Even back then, too, I don't know if you guys remember Chris Jackson. He was a point guard for the Denver Nuggets. He changed his name to like Mabdul Rauf or something like that, something Muslim. He one time wouldn't stand up for the national anthem, and David Stern punished him. But now with this new commissioner, if you don't do this stuff, you're actually not acceptable. You have to be politically active because now I think the NBA has finally taken a different turn into becoming more progressive. So this has been going on for a long time. It's just now that we're finally seeing it like...
Do you think it's because of the commissioner change?
No, I think... maybe,
Do you think David Stern was still a little bit more
maybe-
progressive or not?
No, David Stern was probably more old school, but I think that they didn't feel like the public was ready for it. That's what it is. They thought it was too much, because
Yeah.
now even if you look at some of the old players like Jordan one time came out when there was a senator race going on in North Carolina and said when they asked him to put his input on, he said, I'm not saying anything because don't Republicans buy shoes too? That was Jordan back then, but now Jordan is actually behind Nike and what they're doing with Kaepernick and with LeBron. So I just think that they probably knew that it wasn't time to really push that agenda. Like we wouldn't be really ready.
Yeah, the
for
public
it.
wasn't ready for it.
Yeah,
Do you think it was because the era they were in?
yeah.
Do you feel like
a lot of it? Yeah,
Do you feel like they didn't want to expose their
Right.
own motives yet?
yeah.
Because the public would have definitely taken a turn for the worse on their own.
From the athlete's standpoint, honestly, I don't even think the athletes really care that much. I think they just see dollars and cents.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it's the powers that be that use these athletes.
I think you said it right. I think what it is it's that boost of fame that you get when you go against, I guess, the opposition. So we know because the mainstream media is liberal,
Yeah.
it's easier for these athletes to say their liberal agendas
Yeah.
or opinions because they know they're going to be elevated. Whereas if a conservative basketball player states their opinions, they know that they're going to be trashed in the media.
Like if you look at Muhammad Ali.
Yep.
Now, a lot of people want to link Kaepernick and Muhammad Ali together,
Yeah.
but they're really not. Because Muhammad Ali actually faced real repercussions for what he stood for. He
Right.
was doing it for religious reasons, but he was around the time where it wasn't popular to really be black. He lost his, I think he might have lost his heavyweight championship or something. He was trying to avoid war. He had political, religious reasons for doing so. He actually could have gone to jail and faced real repercussions. But now, look at someone like Kaepernick. He's not facing real repercussions.
Right.
LeBron isn't facing real repercussions. All they get is like money, a slap on the back, and everybody praises
Yeah.
them.
And I think that's why they're doing it is because of that praise. Because we know that this nation is kind of split 50-50. There's still a vast majority, if not, obviously there's a reason why Trump is the president. Because there was more people that wanted that way of thinking. So I don't think the opinion of the nation has changed too much. I think what happened is these athletes have been given an avenue where it makes it easier for their opinions, their agendas to be moved forward because they know that there's not going to be repercussions.
And what's happening with these major corporations, not only from entertainment as far as video games, sports, and even music, is that they're targeting the younger generation. They're not targeting people who've already made an opinion and who were able to decide what they want to choose and what they want to choose. They're actually targeting people who are very young, and they starting the younger the better, they say in many cases. So you have kids looking up to LeBron, kids 12, 13 years old looking up to LeBron, Stephen Curry, all these great major athletes and even musicians, and they're trying to push political agendas down their throats at such a young age to get them to think that way. That's why a lot of the younger generation, as far as my age group and even below or a little bit higher, is a lot more liberalized and a lot more democratic due to that constant programming of liberal agenda and acceptance and equality and all these different
Yeah.
things. And then you have people who are a lot older than you, like maybe in their 50s, 60s, where they've already formed their opinions. They already know what they think. They already know what they want in their lives. As
Or
far as,
what tends to happen is, you have actual life experience, and
Yeah.
those will shape your opinions. Whereas a lot of younger people, their opinions are based like what you said, the role models that they have in their life. So
Yes,
the
yeah.
LeBrons. So they're not actually experiencing anything for themselves. They're just gaining the opinion of somebody or a company that they look up to, a person,
Yeah.
athlete.
So if I was talking to a young man, I would say get educated, read a book, listen to this podcast, and start changing who your role models are.
You guys have any other examples or anything else you want
Yeah,
to talk about?
I remember. Like I looked this up in 68 Olympic Games in Mexico City. Jesse Owens, an African American athlete, when he got his medal, he threw up the fist, Black Power fist stand up sign up, and
Yeah.
he was booed. He was booed because that was that wasn't popular back then.
Right.
And
People
you know what?
weren't ready for it.
And I think if you look at this racial tension that's created, is yes, there have definitely been tensions, or as far as discriminatory acts between different racial groups. That's always going to be there. People are going to gravitate towards what's similar to them and assimilate to that. Okay, that's just human nature. But when you start promoting a culture over another, that's when you have culture wars. That's when you have people going against each other, trying to make their culture superior. And unfortunately, what's happening with the black community is that they haven't been able to assimilate or create their own culture. And this is why you have these movements being able to attach themselves to civil rights and segregation and things like that in order to justify their own movements, like the LGBTQ, like you said before, that just jumps onto the black community, the black bandwagon, to support their rights movement, which is sad, because really the black community is just being used as pawns in order to assimilate a one world government, or should I say assimilate things that are just blatantly wrong and just blatantly shouldn't be in the mainstream culture. And of course, if you look at the history of not only the black community, black culture in the country, a lot of it has been definitely suppressed and oppressed. And I will say that lightly, because just like anything else, you have unfairness, you have injustice and things like that. But to promote a culture over another, that's just wrong. You can be proud about where you're from, but I mean, just because you're black doesn't make you better than somebody who's white. And just because you're white doesn't make you better than somebody who's black. You know what I mean? And I think where they're going now with their movement is just trying to supersede what they think to be injustice, when actually it's just what it is. It's just the world.
I would say
I don't want to go off on a
I
tangent.
would-
I'm sorry, I'm going off.
I would say this. I don't think one person is better than another person as a human being, like their worth. I do think, however, though, one culture can be better than another culture. For example, the Asian culture has a lot of strong stuff about their culture that it doesn't matter where they go, they thrive.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I do think your culture can be stronger than somebody else's culture to certain respects, certain degrees, and it may vary.
yeah,
But
yeah.
that's what I would say. And I think for the black people, they did have a culture. Back then, they were Americans. That's how they felt. Now they don't feel so much so. Now they hate America. They've been taught to hate the white man.
Yeah.
But they were Americans. That's what they thought back then. We were Americans. We loved this country. And they fought hard for it. And they labored. They worked hard. But they've lost that sense of culture.
Sense of identity.
Identity, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that is due to their culture being politicized, and now they just jump on social justice political movements that are now being used towards everything
It
else.
started when their morals went down. When the
Yeah.
family unit got broken, they threw some welfare at them.
And to bring it back into the entertainment, I mean, that's why you have movies like Black Panther that sell out, or record selling office box weekends, and people showing up in dashikis to support the movie, which
and
I
none
think
of them
is,
are from Africa.
and none of them are from Africa.
None of them.
None of them even know their heritage, and yet they can't even ask. They can't even love being an American because they have this idea that there's some kind of institutional racism, and you'll even see it in gaming. Like I remember playing. I don't want to shut out the game, but I was playing a Shadow of War. I just said the game, but you'll see that they try to institute characters that are of color and things of that nature. Which I mean, that's fine with me. If you want to do something like that, it's cool. But don't do it based off the basis of the politics of the day. But just do it because that's what you want to do for the game. You know what I mean? That's your intention of trying to diversify the game per se. But
Hey,
I mean-
I think if you think you're really great, you should be creative and invent your own stuff. Don't
that's
try to take
exactly how
something
I
and
feel.
create it,
I feel
bro.
the same way.
Hey,
I
the
feel,
Bible says, "Don't lay anything on another man's foundation."
yeah. Yeah,
Right?
and I that's like with the Little Mermaid. If you guys are so upset and so angry that the Little Mermaid's white, why don't you make your own stories?
Right.
Why don't you make your own stuff? If you're so into that, but even your own, what's amazing is even in your own music, you have people snatching the sound. Like hip hop. Hip hop is is the most popular genre out there right now, other than pop music, and yet you have corporations using your own what you've used as far as from the 80s to the 90s to the 2000s, what you used to only highlight the struggles of your neighborhoods in the black communities. It started in the boroughs of New York City, and now it's mainstream, and yet you can't even control the content that comes out from it.
Hey, can you guys think of any like black characters and shows or TVs that are actually cool?
Yeah, the Fresh Prince was pretty cool.
I can think of like Shaft, the Black Panthers one, right?
Yeah.
Shaft was
Marvel
good.
character, yeah.
Yeah.
Who else? Denzel Washington.
Or, like,
Training Day was
Those
really
are movie
good.
stars. I'm talking about like fictional characters, like
Fictional characters? No, not really.
Yeah, I mean you have some other Marvel characters like who's the guy with the eye patch there in Avengers?
Nick Fury.
Nick Fury, right? He's black. You have the Green Lantern. There's actually been a couple different variations, but the newest Green Lantern is actually black. And that's because not doesn't have anything to do with agendas. It's just how when one Green Lantern dies, the ring selects a new one. Just happened to be a black guy.
Yeah.
If you go to the X-Men universe, you have guys like Bishop that are pretty cool. He's a black character, and things like that. So there are black characters out there.
Yeah.
I think what it is you have a lot of established lore. Actually, Gears of War. One of the coolest characters is Coltrane. He's a black character. So I think what it is a lot of these established lores, they were created in a time period where it was mostly created by white people. So
Yeah.
usually when you're building a story, you try to represent yourself.
Yeah.
Like if I'm playing a video game and it allows you to build your character, I don't build a pink character, a female character, or a black character. I build a character based on what I wish I was or could be.
Or what I look like. Yeah.
Something to that nature. And I think now you're starting to see more black because you're getting more black people that are creative or in positions where they can create stories and things
Yeah.
of that nature.
But
Yeah.
I don't think it's ever a good idea to try to encroach your blackness into another culture. Like, I think black people are suffering from some sort of complex. Like, if you go to Africa and a lot of parts in Africa, it's predominantly black. And that's okay because that's what that is.
See-
So America's predominantly white.
That's actually funny.
You know what I
I
mean?
don't want to keep harping back on gaming, but
You ever watch Coming to America? It was a black king,
Yeah.
black son,
right?
predominantly black. That's okay.
But I think white people do the same thing too.
Like what? Try to encroach whiteness?
Yeah, like
how? I've never seen them do that. I
like
only see
even
black people
in
doing
music. In music, they try to use the same sound. Like we have a lot of like in hip hop, you have a lot of white rappers. But I for me, it's just the same. It's the same
they
thing.
never-
They want to
they ne-
assimilate to that
They,
culture.
they never try to try to change it or say, oh, this. Why is there only black people doing? They never do that. Black people, I feel like, are like
No, but black people are more insecure about their own culture.
Exactly, that's what I'm talking about.
The
They're
problem is what happens
insecure.
is like Eminem, a huge white rapper, right? There was some guy named Lord Jamar who came on Vlad TV and said Eminem's a guest in hip hop. But yeah, he's one of the biggest rappers to ever do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you
So
never
one of
hear
the
him cry
biggest-
like, "Oh my gosh, God, there's not a lot of white rappers in here."
No,
You know what I mean? That's what I mean. Like
no.
I feel like black people have done this throughout all of history. Like
Yeah,
encroach
they
their
cry.
blackness. Like
They cry
you
about
need to
certain
love
things.
us. You need to love us because we're black. You know, that's just stupid.
Yeah. No, it's stupid.
Yeah.
It's just I'm saying. I mean, I think that white people do the same thing. They assimilate to certain cultures too. If they like something, I think there's two ways you can go with it. You can either try to intentionally move your culture or try to make it the same as something else, or you could just like that and try to do that. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's just two different. There's a deeper level to it, and there's also just a more casual where people just like it
Yeah,
and
but
they
I
want to do.
don't-
They want to make their own make up their own style of what that was. You know what I mean?
I don't really see examples where let's say a movie or video game where a black character was changed to white.
Right. That's
I
what I'm
don't see
talking
that.
about.
Because there's not many. There's not many of them. I mean, like you said. I mean, most of the characters from Marvel were created by white men because there wasn't many black people creating characters like that. So I mean, we obviously live in a more. America, like you said, was more predominantly white.
Let me put it this
So
way.
you don't have a representation of a black character because, like you said before, they're trying to represent themselves. So
Let me-
you
let
don't
me-
see many of those.
Let me put it this way. There's a lot of different cultures in the U.S. You got Cape Verdeans like myself. You've got Asians, right? None of us, we understand that this is a white nation. That's who this is their country.
Yeah,
They found it,
yeah.
and we're comfortable with that. But black folks are the only one here. Like, oh my gosh, we need more of this.
Yeah.
We need more of that. You know, and they just can't seem to understand that's okay that you're a minority here. It's okay. You know what I mean? You're a guest here. It was founded by white people.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
okay. Like there's other parts of the world where blacks dominate. Like if you go to Africa, if you go to the Cape Verde Islands, it's all Cape Verdeans. It's okay.
Yeah. I mean, just like you said before,
'Cause it just looks pathetic when you're always going something like,
And you're
need
crying,
more,
yeah.
you need more of us. Why don't you love us because we're black? Is it because we're black? We want to go to a store and see a black baby instead of just a white baby. Like dumb stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, dude, come on.
that's so funny. They actually did that at school at the at the school I went to in high school. They gave us babies and they talked about how most of the babies were white babies, and really it just. It's just sad that it was sad that even then we were still talking about that. You know what I mean? That people can't. But it's true though. Like you said, we are a minority as far as people who are black, as far as Cape Verdeans and things of that nature. We are a minority, but that shouldn't leave you as a victim to your circumstance. You know what I mean? Or a victim. You shouldn't have that mentality, but rather create your own stuff, do your own thing. You know what I
I
mean?
mean, I don't see any problem with you being a minority. If you're getting treated the same way, you have the same chances as the majority, then who cares? Just be an American.
Yeah, love being American first. I think that's what we're here to say. Love being an American first.
But I know we got got into this pretty deep, and we're gonna take a break just for a couple seconds, and then we got some fun topics for you guys.
Politically incorrect.
Hey, PI natives, thanks for tuning in today. The guys would love to hear your feedback, so if you have any questions, comments, or topics you'd like us to talk about, feel free to email us at thepoliticallyincorrectpod@gmail.com or leave a comment on our YouTube channel. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. The only place where your skin color doesn't determine who you are, but is only cosmetic.
All right, welcome back, PI Nation. Like I said, we got some fun topics for you. So I'll start off, and then I'll shoot it over to my co-hosts to see what it is that they have in store. But I wanted to talk about the Blue Bell ice cream incident. So if you don't know about this, this was a couple. I don't know if they're together or not. I think they're still looking for the camera person, but they decided to go into a grocery store, and this woman, this young lady,
I'm not familiar with this story.
decided that she was going to take an ice cream jug out of the freezer, open it up, and then lick it, put the top back on, and then put it back in the freezer. So I don't know about you guys, but when it comes to food, you don't mess with people's foods. You know, even when
No
I
way.
worked in fast food, that's just one of the lines that you just never crossed over is messing with fast food. But The story does have a happy ending. She was found and she was delivered a nice, delicious dose of a felony.
He's giving a felony,
And
man.
it's possible she could face anywhere from 2 to 20 years in prison, based on tampering with food. So
Wow.
may seem harsh, but at the same time, that's imagine being that person that bought that ice cream, um, or just not knowing what ice cream it is, and now you're damaging all sorts of product from that store, from the company. It's just not cool. But it's people that are just looking for attention. But glad she got found.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Wow, that's something, dude. Wow.
Yeah.
I wasn't even familiar with the story until you brought it
Yeah,
up.
you don't mess with people's food.
You certainly don't mess with people's food, and I guess Americans are real serious about their food, man.
You guys have any other fun topics?
I just saw one last week. I don't know if you guys heard about that 6-year-old boy that was choking at the Chick-fil-A drive-thru.
No.
So a
Yeah.
16-year-old
Actually, I did hear about that,
teenager, Logan Simmons was a teenager that worked at the franchise, jumped out of his cash register area through the window and saved the boy's life.
Yeah, that's
From the
pretty
high
cool.
make. That's
Wow.
pretty cool. Go Chick-fil-A. Not only are they standing for strong conservative values, but they've got heroes amongst themselves.
Absolutely.
I guess I just wanted to say one of Massachusetts Planned Parenthood
Oh, yeah.
explicitly closes for good,
Nice.
which is great. I said yay
Whoa.
to that.
I heard you post
There
that.
must have been a lot of
Um,
salty tears.
Also, Trump will be the first president to actually speak at an anti-LGBTQ rally. So that's awesome. I hope
Really?
they actually I hope they air that.
How's that going to go? Because hasn't he sort of like,
Yeah, usually
tweeted nice
he's-
things about them?
Yeah. Well, we'll see how
So
that
that's
goes.
a little.
Yeah. Maybe it could be fake in America, but I doubt it is because I'm sure the president certainly does stand on certain moral compasses or moral grounds.
Right.
But you can be friendly. See, the difference between all of us here definitely support the president, okay? But just because you agree with somebody doesn't mean that you agree with everything that they do. You know what I mean? So I just want to put that there, not to say that I don't agree with him speaking at this rally. Oh, excuse me. But you have to simulate. You can agree with somebody, but not agree totally at what they do. Okay, like I don't agree with some of the things that some of the rhetoric he might use to describe some of his policies or what he's going to do, but I certainly agree about him making America great again.
I disagree. I like the rhetoric. I
And-
like all of it.
and
I think it's awesome.
and trying to make the country great again. You know what I mean? And he's for the American people, and that's what I surely do agree with. You know what I mean? So yeah, so check that out. Hopefully they air that soon, so you'll be able to see it. But I think that's a wrap for what we've got, unless
Hey.
we got anything else left.
Matt, what's the deal with AOC not knowing how to use the toilet?
So, if you don't know, yeah, I did put that as one of the fun topics. So,
AOC, what is that?
AOC went to the border and was, oh my goodness, she was causing just a big scene, yelling at the Border Patrol agents for nothing, just looking for clickbaits and views and wants to be on YouTube, I guess.
Yeah.
But she was saying all these lies about how they were treating people at the border. And she specifically said that the Border Patrol agents were telling women that if they wanted a drink of water, that they had to drink out of the toilet.
Wow.
Whoa.
Which was proven false.
Whoa.
Falsely pretty quickly. And of course, she didn't apologize for any of that.
Of course, she didn't apologize.
but-
Oh man.
The president of the Border Patrol, they decided they put out a picture, and basically it's the same style of toilets that you see in a prison, where the bottom section is the toilet, and then the top section is a water fountain or a bubbler if you're from here, where the prisoners can take a drink of water and also use. It's an all-in-one system. So they're not actually drinking out of the toilet. So apparently AOC doesn't understand how this joint toilet fountain works. And she decided to just say these lies about our brave men and women who work on the Border Patrol.
Amazing.
And then the week before that, she was saying she was comparing it to a concentration camp, which is just a smack in the face of all the Jewish people.
Yeah.
who
That is
actually
such a
went through
smack
that.
in the face. If you really, really listen to that, she has no idea what the Jewish nation or the Jewish people
And
went through.
the sad part is this woman was elected. So
Duh. And
You
that's
know?
a New York. That's a New York representative.
Yeah, no,
right?
no surprise there, but
Of
yeah.
course, of course.
But
she had some bad polls recently.
yeah, I got a feeling she may not be reelected,
Yeah.
especially if she keeps just being dumb. But that's all I have. You guys all
That's
set?
all I got.
All right,
That's all I
PI
got.
Nation. Thank you for tuning in for another episode. We will see you next week with Border Wall Monday.
And we're excited to have a guest on the show. His name is Reverend Thomas or Reverend Tom Brooks, and he will be talking more about a biblical standpoint about border security.
All right.
And we should think of a nice poll question that'll go in line with that, and we'll see what you guys think about it.
All right. See you next Monday with another episode of the Politically Incorrect
See
Podcast.
you guys.